magkakaroon ng dagdag pasahe sa mga jeep.
They're due naman talaga na. For increase kasi the last time we had this fare rate increase was ang level pa lang ng diesel noon was I think 44 pesos per liter.
Okay.
So magkano na siya ngayon, more than half na. At least more than half na ulit siya by tomorrow.
The LTFRB implemented a 2 peso provisional fare hike back in June, which brought the minimum fare up to 11 pesos. But now, several transport groups want the minimum fare at 15 pesos.
Baka raw maghanap na lang ng ibang trabaho ang ilang tsuper dahil sa paghirap na malakihang taas presyo sa petrolyo.
Bakit ka mapapasada kung hindi ka naman kikita? Ay, hindi naman po pwede na magsakripisyo kami na walang kikitain para sa pamilya.
Hefty increase in oil prices in the coming days or weeks. It is the commuters' turn to shell out more. The LTFRB calls on or sees an upward adjustment in bus and fare hikes as inevitable. How much increase is fair for both the drivers and the commuters? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to this Tuesday edition of The Chiefs. I'm at Lingao. Joining us via Zoom will be Ana Marie Pamintuan of the Philippine Star in a little while. And joining us as well is Luchi Cruz-Valdes, the head of News 5. Luchi, magandang gabi and happy
Hello,
Tuesday to you.
Welcome back to me.
Welcome back to you. Oh, mukhang fresh mo after 1 week of
under the weather.
Under the weather ba?
So many others, I'm sure. No? Parang uso-uso ngayon, Ed.
Yeah, and
weather.
Because you are having severe changes in the temperature and the weather. Minsan mainit tapos biglang uulan. And not to mention, we're about to have another spell of bad weather next few days. Baka bukas nasa par na yung super typhoon Henry.
Twin storm pa nga
Yeah.
di ba? Dalawa-dalawa sila
Si Gardo at si Henry.
Papangalanin nating Henry pareho. In case, yeah. But let's hope that yung super typhoon, di ba, will really just graze the country kahit na pumasok sa par.
Yeah.
So,
Although, ang sabi naman ng Pag-asa kanina, kausap namin Pag-asa, ang sabi nila malamang hindi siya magla-landfall sa Pilipinas pero hahatak siya ng ulan. So, hindi mo naman masyadong asahan siguro yung malakas na hangin dahil hindi naman tatama o magla-landfall yung mga bagyo. Pero asahan mo siguro yung medyo malakas na ulan.
Yes, ulan ang kalaban. And to think, ang dami pa rin baha na hindi pa rin completely humuhupa. Yun na nakakabagabag dyan, di ba? Kumbaga, hindi pa nga nakaka-recover from the flooding. Eto na naman, threat na naman. But of course, merong isang malaking, very, sabihin na natin, popular issue.
Oh, yeah.
Hindi ko alam kung unpopular. Yung NCAP na
No
TRO.
contact apprehension.
Oo, na biktima ng TRO.
But the weird thing about this, the oral arguments were set for January next year. So I don't know just how temporary is the TRO because kung yung oral arguments will only start in January, gano'n ka ba kayang TRO?
Parang na yan, semi-permanent for the next. Hindi naman. Let's see. And to think, Pasko so matraffic. Expect the worst traffic with the holidays.
That's also true.
But then again, I don't know, bakit ganon, Ed, no? Tumataas ang presyo ng gas, pero matraffic pa rin. People are still using their cars, no? There's no stopping us from using our vehicles.
Kasi wala ka namang masyadong choices dahil makikipagsiksikan ka dun sa public transportation, tapos may pasukan pa. So, ano gagawin mo?
Yeah. Anyway.
So, bite the bullet and pay the cost.
Exactly.
Anyway,
no choice.
Let's just go into break because coming up next, after this break, we'll be speaking to a commuters group and the looming fare hike. So keep it here on One News. Welcome back to the Chiefs here in One News. And now joining us via Zoom is the chairperson of the National Center for Commuter Safety and Protection, Ms. Elvira Medina. Ma'am, magandang gabi and welcome to the Chiefs.
Good evening and thank you for your call.
Yes, ma'am.
Magandang gabi, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. It's good to have you. Ma'am,
Thank you for inviting me over.
yes, ma'am. Una-una po, ang sabi kasi ng lahat, kailangan ng pagbabalanse, di ba? Kailangan balanse ng interest ng
Opo.
operator, ng driver, at syempre ng commuter. Sa huli, ang pagbabalanse, ibig sabihin, either everybody happy or nobody happy. For example, sabi ng LTOP, ang gusto sana nila 16 pesos na increase. Ang sabi ng LTFRB, baka naman 2 pesos. Kayo po, ang sabi ata ninyo, 2 pesos na lang sana hanggat maaari. Sa tingin ho ba ninyo, ano bang reasonable na pagbabalanse sa pagitan ng commuter at ng operator driver?
Kasi ganito po, sa matagal ng panahon, since 2005 na kami ay nakikisama sa ating mga kasama dyan sa transport sector, alam po naman nila na tayo kung mag-decision ay objective. Meron po tayong ginagamit na pamantayan para sila naman ay hindi malugi ng ganoon. Kaya sa mga nakaraang panahon po na tumaas at bumaba ang ating mga oil prices, ang lagi po namin kasama ay ang yumaong Seni Maranan at Efren de Luna at ang hanggang ngayon ay ating kapartner sa lansangan na si Obet Martin. Ang panukala po ni Ka Obet ay mag-peg na tayo sa another 2 peso increase or 1 peso increase kung 12 o 13. Pero kung yan po ay aabot ng 15 o 16, it's a bitter pill for the commuters.
Yun nga po ang gusto kong malaman. Ano po ba, dahil po yung mga, of course, yung mga transport groups, medyo nalalaman natin yung basehan, kumbaga, presyo ng gasolina, di ba? At saka yung dami ng pasahero. In your case,
Hindi po.
yung mga commuters, ano po ba ang basehan ng inyong mga, pag sinasabi nyong makatarungan ang ganitong price hike or fare hike at sobra-sobra na ang pagkaganito? Ano ang basis?
Okay. Ang sa mga nakaraang experience po namin, ang aming nagiging basehan dyan ay number 1, kilala po namin ang mga leader ng transportasyon na matagal na at talagang may tunay na management expertise. Nalalaman din po namin ng mga bagito na kung ano lang maisipan at para maging popular ay isinusulong. Katulad po nitong ating mga pinag-uusapan ngayon. Ang nagkaroon po tayo ng minimum wage increase. Subalit, ang taas po ng pasahe na hinihingi nila ay hindi po na-consider doon sa ating minimum wage. Ang ordinaryong employee po o sabihin na natin mga estudyante, usually po, experience din namin to at marami sa ating mga kababayan, ang average number of rides po namin ay 3. Kung ito po ay 15 pesos sa isang sakay, magiging 45 pesos sa one way pa lang po yun. At sa pagbalik ay another 45 pesos. In other words, almost 100 pesos. Subalit hindi naman ganun kalaki ang itinaas ng ating minimum wage. Kung yun po ay isang tatay ang papasok at isang anak na estudyante, 200 pesos, almost 200 pesos, ang magiging kaltas sa kanyang minimum wage.
Oo nga, no? Laki nun, ano?
Ang laki ng impact. Ganon din po naman, sinasabi ng ating NEDA, na sa bawat piso na itinataas, 0.3% ang itinataas sa ating tinatawag natin na rate natin, di ba? Ng ating rates ng ating mga bangko and ayun ang nagiging impact po sa ating kabuhayan. So kung magdadagdag ka ng 5 piso, ito po ay magiging 3 times 5.
Okay.
So 0.15 na po ang magiging inflation rate natin. Napakalaki po ng domino effect na mangyayari niyan. Ang sinasabi namin po, makatarungan yung ibinibigay ni Ka-Obet sapagkat nung nakaraang panahon po, Ma'am Luchi, nakita niyo naman po, di ba? Nung tumaas dati ang pasahe, pumayag kami itaas. Subalit nung bumaba po ang halaga ng ating krudo, sila na mismo, sila Ka-Obet, ang voluntarily nag-petition na ibaba ang pasahe. Isa pa pong dahilan. Opo. Ang isa pa pong punto ay ganito. May mga ibang nagsusulong po na malaki ang tama sa kanila sapagkat mga lumang jeep po ang ginagamit nila. Ang grupo po nila Ka-Obet ay bagong jeep. Yung bagong jeep po nakaka 12 kilometers per liter. Yung lumang jeep kaya umaaray sila na gusto ay 4 kilometers per liter. Ito po
Naku po, ang layo ng diferensya, no?
Yung po ang kanilang efficiency. Ito po ay aprobado, ay sinertify po ito ng UPNTS at saka ng mismong mga ibang grupo din po, katulad ng Piston, si George San Mateo mismo ang nagsabi niyan sa amin, at ng Jeep. Yun po, lahat sila. Number one, napaka-inefficient. At pangalawa po, wala po lahat yan ng handbrake. Ma'am Luchi, isasakay mo ba ang iyong mga anak at idadrive ang walang handbrake na sasakyan?
Ma'am, teka ma'am, atras ako ng konti. Ma'am, yes ma'am.
Bakit sa amin ipapataw yung cost ng inefficiency nila?
Yes ma'am. Ma'am, pero ma'am, atras ako ng konti. Ano pong definition ninyo ng lumang jeep at bagong jeep? Kasi siyempre, sa iba sa atin, ang luma, medyo bago-bago pa eh.
Hindi po. Ang bago sa kanila ay mga pinare-repair na lang ang mga katawan nun. Yung mga lumang jeep po, yung alam natin na hindi sumama sa modernization.
So ma'am, ang sinasabi niyong lumang jeep, yung mukha pang wheelies na jeep na pinahaba. Tama ho ba?
Tama po.
Ang sinasabi yung bagong jeep, yung mukhang minibus.
Tama.
Ganun
tama
ba?
po. Imagine
parang 80% yan ang mga jeep na nakikita natin ngayon, hindi ho ba? Baka nga 90% pa eh. Pero ano naman po ang choice ng mga yan? Dahil yun nga po yung batikos din dun sa programa ng dating administrasyon. Hindi ho ba na wala na makaka-afford ng mga bagong, ng mga modern jeepneys na yan?
Hindi po totoo yun.
Hindi ho ba?
Hindi po totoo yun. Kung ang grupo po nila Ka-Obet Martin at ng iba pa niyang kasamahan sa kanyang grupo, yung grupo nila Pedjodap, ay nakapag-modernize. Bakit po hindi sila? Binigyan na po sila ng pagkakataon. Meron silang 5% lang ang interest, meron 7 years to pay, at meron din po silang subsidy. Yung dating 80,000 na pang down payment, ginawa na pong 160,000 pang down payment. Kung ito po ay na-afford ng grupo nila Ka-Obet, bakit hindi po kaayang i-afford ng iba?
Okay. Ma'am, balikan ko lang yung tanong po ni Luchi kanina. So sa pangkalahatan all over the country, ilang porsyento nga yung yung masasabi nating luma versus bagong jeep?
Sa assessment po namin, siguro mga 65%.
Yung alin po? Yung
pa lang po. Yung luma.
Ang inefficient.
Ang luma.
Inefficient, opo.
So 35% pa lang yung bago. So kahit pa paano po, 6 out of every 10 are still using the old jeep
Yun nga po.
that give you 4
Yun nga po
kilometers
ang
per
problema.
liter.
So ang tinatanong po namin, bakit ang commuters ang sasagot doon sa inefficiency ng isang nagsiservisyo sa amin? Bakit kami ang sasagot noon? Bakit sa amin ang parusa kung sila ang may kasalanan? Katulad din po kung bibentahan kang refrigerator na hindi umaandar. Hindi po ba kung ikaw ay mayroong karinderya, nabentahan ka ng hindi umaandar o napaka-inefficient na refrigerator, kawawa naman po yung tindera at saka yung kanyang mga kumakain sa kanya, hindi po ba?
Opo.
Bakit sa amin itataas? Sa amin sisingilin yung inefficiency. Sinasabi nila hindi kinakaya. Hindi nga kinakaya sapagkat inefficient ang inyong mga makina, sapagkat itong modernization Noon pa pong 2012 inumpisahan. Parang 10 taon na po.
Yes, Ma'am Elvira, kasama po natin ngayon si Ana Marie Pamintuan ng Philippine Star, live from the Port Area in Manila.
Good evening po.
Good evening. Yes, ma'am.
Kumustahin ko lang po kasi mga 2 weeks na nag-uumpisa yung classes natin, no? Ang dami-daming tao sa
Totoo.
Kumusta yung sitwasyon sa public transportation, lalo na sa mga jeep at buses?
Yun po, ang nangyayari po, kasi ganito po yan, ang mga iba't ibang uri ng sasakyan, mayroon lang pong tinatawag na kilometer limitation. Ang mga tricycle ay hanggang sa loob lamang ng mga LGUs, ang jeep ay hanggang 14 kilometers lang, at ang bus yun ang tinatawag na long haul natin. Doon po sa ginawa sa EDSA carousel, dati po may tinatawag na road capacity measurement. Alam po nila ng LTFRB noon kung ilan ang kailangan para ma-efficiently mapatakbo yan. Subalit, ang ginawa po, kinat down. Pati ang mga ruta kinat down. Kaya na po nagkaroon ng kaguluhan. Ang ginagawa po ngayon ng LTFRB, nagre-remediate sila ngayon. Sila ngayon ang nagiging workhorse para ito ay maiayos. Yun po ay nangyari noong nakaraang administrasyon. Yung pinagputol-putol po ng mga ruta, yung iniba-iba yung mga ruta ng mga talagang dati ng, katulad noon, sinasabi ko nga, nung ako'y nag-college po, mula doon sa aming bahay, isang sakay lang ako papunta sa college na pinapasukan ko dahil yung pong bus ay dumadaan doon sa amin sa Wanluna, lumalabas po sa Tayuman at umaabot po sa Maytiapo at naglalakad na lang ako mula doon papasok sa UE dahil doon po ang aking bachelor's degree. Isang sakay lang. Pero ang nangyari po, pinutol, nilagay sa jeep, nilagay sa ganito at ganon. Hindi ko malaman kung anong klase yung modernization yung ginawa noon pa nila. So nagkaputol-putol, kaya nga sinasabi ko kanina, Ma'am Luchi, na ang isang empleyado o isang estudyante, average of 3 rides ang kanyang kinukuha. Mula sa kanyang sa kanyang tahanan, sasakay po yan ng tricycle o ng jeep na maikli. Mula doon sa bababaan niya, sasakay uli siya ng jeep para sa main road at mula sa main road, sasakay siya papunta sa kanyang papasukan. Mula sa papasukan, kung minsan, hindi naman lahat ng panahon, pero marami ang nakakapaglakad, pero marami din yung kailangan pang unin sumakay. So on the average, 3 rides. Napakalaki po ng impact nito.
So ngayong nagpasukan po, ano yung sapat ba yung mga sasakyan natin? Ngayong nag-umpisa yung...
Hindi po natin ma-assess pa ngayon sapagkat hindi pa nag-full blast. Sa panahon ngayon, mukhang nakaka-cope sila. Pero pag ito'y nag-full blast na po, kasi marami pong nag-hybrid ngayon. Maraming nag-2 shifting, meron pang nag-3 shifting, kaya medyo hindi ganon kahirap. Pero pag ito po ay nag-full blast na sa November, kailangan po nilang iayos at balikan, ay review o i-revisit yung tinatawag road management capacity na pinag-aralan po noon pa ng ating mga eksperto. At isa pa po ay mayroon po kasi na hindi lang naman tungkol sa capacity ang dapat tignan, kundi safety rin. Doon po sa amin, sa probinsya ng Bataan, meron kaming ginagawa, nilalatag ngayon na programa para dyan sa pagpasokan. May tinatawag kami na child safety zones. Hanggang saan pwede, hanggang anong edad pwedeng ihatid ang mga bata ng nanay nila, tatay nila, anong taon sila, anong grade sila, pwede nang sumakay ng tricycle papunta sa kanilang eskwela, at ilan sa kanila ang pwede nang mag-isa. So meron pong mga safety nets, katulad ng kailangan malinaw ang mga pedestrian lanes, kailangan mayroong limitation ang sakay ng mga tricycle at jeep. Ma'am Luchi, nakita na natin, di ba? Alam ko kayo ay nasa media. Nakikita natin to sa mga ibang lalawigan. Diyos ko, hanggang bubong. Ang
Opo,
tricycle,
yeah.
ilan na ang nabalita na nagkaroon ng disgrasya mga bata. Kaya yun po ang nais nating iwasan. Yun po ang naging advocacy namin. At ngayon po, inuunti-unti naming ilatag. Magkakaroon po kami ng mga signages. You will be entering a child safety zone in 500 meters. Caution. Mayroong mga ganun po na pahayag at itinitrain din namin po yung mga tinatawag natin stakeholders, mga school officials, enforcers, mga drivers, mga PTA, at mga bata mismo. Anong ibig sabihin ng pagtawid and so on. So marami po kaming ginagawa na sana ay makopya din ng ibang lungsod. Sapagkat hindi lang naman yung pasahe, halaga ng pasahe ang mahalaga, pinakamahalaga po ay yung kaligtasan ng mga kasama natin, lalo na ang maliliit na bata.
Pero hindi ho ba, ma'am,
Ma'am,
yung
pag-usapan po
signages
natin yung libreng sakay. Ngayon po, yan po ang hinihingi nga sa Kongreso na payagan nga po itong budget. Pero mukhang hindi po inclined ang BBM na ibigay yan dahil medyo magastos. Yan po ba ay nakakatulong sa mga consumer?
Nakikita po natin, marami ang natutuwa dahil libre. Pero tingnan po natin gaano kahirap bago makasakay ang ating mga commuters. Napakalaki po, napakalayo po yung aming mga kasamahan sa opisina. Yung isa po ay manggagaling sa Valenzuela, sasakay ng jeep hanggang sa 7-Eleven sa may MCU. Pipila na siya doon para umakyat doon sa footbridge para makatawid sa kabila. At doon pa rin sa footbridge, pila pa rin ng mahaba. Pagbaba niya, lalakad siya uli ng mahaba para makahintay ng sasakyan niya doon sa carousel. Sapagkat wala na po siya alternate na sasakyan dahil yun lang po ang available na public utility vehicle.
Ma'am, ano pong gusto nyo sabihin tungkol dyan? What are you trying to say? Na itong libreng sakay is counterproductive kasi walang pondo for...
Counterproductive po. Sapagkat, number one, ako po ay naniniwala na tayo po ay naninirahan sa isang demokratikong bansa. Ang isang demokratikong bansa po at ang mamamayan nito ay hindi laging lumalakad at umaasa ng buong kabuhayan nila sa kanilang pamahalaan. Ibang uri po ng sistema ng gobyerno ang umiiral sa isang bansa na lahat ay ibinibigay ng gobyerno. It's counterproductive because marami po ang hindi na nagtatrabaho, hindi na nagsisikap. I'll tell you one thing, katulad po nung pinamimigay na 4-piece, alam niyo ba kung gaano kahirap na ngayon kumuha ng house help? Alalang gusto magtrabaho, pero hanapin mo sila. Yun nga po isa sasabihin ko sana sa DSWD. I-check nila kung saan ginagastos. Marami po sa mga barangay, dumami ang mga bingo centers. Yung tinatawag na tong hits homes. At nandun po yung mga nanay, imbis na magtrabaho bilang house help, bilang mga nandun na po.
Buti na lang, wala nang isabong.
So parang dole-out mentality ang mentality ng ganito. Yun ang
tama po.
Pero nakikita rin po natin na dahil nga rin po sa hirap ngayon ng negosyo, ekonomiya, no? At lahat po tayo nararamdaman yan. Malaking tulong naman po talaga yung libreng sakay. Doon na lang po tayo muna sa libreng sakay, halimbawa.
Totoo po yan.
Opo. Because, I can understand how big a help that is. Lalo na if we consider that according to your computation, a family whose just one member spends 90 pesos a day, and that's just for basic fare, di ba? Times 2 na yun, no? Kung dalawang miyembro. Di ba? How can that family afford naman just going to work and coming back home? So malaking bagay naman talaga yung libreng sakay.
Yan po ay kung 15 pesos ang ipatutupad. Subalit kung ito po ay 12 pesos, yun ay equitable sapagkat nandun pa rin po sa range na papasok doon sa kasama ng inilagay na pagtaas ng minimum wage. Kaya pa po i-absorb yun. Opo. At para po ma-encourage tayo na lahat ay magsumikap, kaya natin to. Hindi naman po laging kailangan na laging nakalakad. Kasi po ang nangyayari, nabalitaan ko nung minsan may nag-grupo na ng mga cigarette vendor, sila din daw, kailangan bigyan din ng ayuda. Lahat na lang, ayuda. Hindi po ba? Parang nagkakaroon na ng mentality ang mga tao na pagka sila ay nasa lansangan, sila ay may ginagawa, entitled sa ayuda. Yung entitlement po, nagiging palasak na ngayon. Lahat na lang entitled din, di ba? Hindi nila nalalaman, yun in-explain ko dati. Yan libre na yan, hindi talagang libre. Kinakaltas po yan doon sa ating ibinabayad na, actually prepaid po natin yan eh. Kinakaltas po yan doon sa ating mga taxes na binabayad na bago pa natin tanggapin ang sweldo, ay natanggalan ka na ng income tax, di po ba? Meron ng na nababawasan ka na. Prepaid po natin yan. Sa atin din kinukuha. At ibinabawas po doon sa mga services din na kailangan i-deliver sa atin. Ganun po ang nangyayari. So, siyempre, katulad ng isang nanay yan, kung gagastos ka sa isang bagay sa loob ng iyong bahay, kakaltasin mo din yan sa ibang kailangan mong bilhin. Binabalanse mo yan bilang nanay. Pero paano ngayon kung talagang said na yung isa, paano ka pa magbibigay doon sa kabila? Kailangan matignan po natin sa makatotohanan ng mga mata kung ano nangyayari sa atin. Hindi lang po yung talagang parang gusto ng lahat entitled na tayo lahat sa ayuda. Oo, tama. Kailangan din ang ayuda pero on emergency circumstances. Kung ganito pong bumabalik na sa tunay na kalagayan natin, nagno-normalize na, pwede namang unti-unti na yang i-withdraw.
Okay. Maraming salamat po, Ma'am Elvira Medina, ang chairperson ng National Center for Commuter Safety and Protection. Maraming salamat for joining us tonight. At ingat po.
Thank you, ma'am.
Po sa pag-imbita sa akin. Salamat.
Ingat po. We are
Salamat
starting up
po.
another conversation right after the break, so please stay with us here on One News.
Senate Blue Ribbon Committee continues with its investigation into the unauthorized sugar import order.
Walang naging tahasang pagtutol si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos sa planong pag-angkat ng tone-toneladang asukal sa bansa.
Isa raw yan sa mga pinangahawakan ng mga dating opisyal ng Sugar Regulatory Administration nang aprubahan nila ang kontrobersyal na Sugar Importation Order No. 4.
There was really a big sense, also expressed by the President, that we have to act fast when it comes to addressing the sugar supply issue. And based also from feedback from stakeholders that were conducted by SRA, and then from the August 4 meeting of Administrator Sarapica with the President and the ES and Board Member Balderrama, the feedback was that there is a more or less agreement that the importation program is a go.
Is the word a quote-unquote is a go? Verbal instruction,
No, Your
written
Honor.
instruction,
That
or
is
you're just your own perception?
Perception, Your
Your
Honor.
perceptions.
A sugar millers group says there is no artificial sugar shortage. That's contrary to what Malacanang and some lawmakers are claiming. We have that group's president with us now. Joining us is Pablo Lobregat of the Philippine Sugar Millers Association. Sir Pablo, maraming salamat for joining us and welcome to the Chiefs.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Magandang gabi po. Sir, quite frankly, number of us are stumped kung ano talaga yung totoo. We've had so many versions of the sugar supply question in the last 3 weeks. And Malacanang, the last time said that meron talagang shortage, pero baka September pa kailangan mag-import ng 150,000. Now, what we understand from you in your testimony kanina is that the shortage is real. Could you elaborate on that? Exactly what do you mean when you say the shortage is real, and what kind of sugar shortage?
We were consulted by the SRA end of July. And this, when we say we are talking about all stakeholders, millers, planters, and we also use our data, SRA's data. And to make a long story short, it is estimated at the end of August, there will be about 100,000 tons or 140,000 tons remaining in the warehouses of the mills and the refineries. Okay, this represents the stock in mills and refineries are what we call the buffer stock. Sugar that leaves the mills and the refineries are what we consider pipeline. Right? It goes to the bodegas of the traders, the bodegas of the industrial users, etc., etc. Last year, for the same period, we had about 462,000 bags. So when that buffer stock is low, and it was predicted early enough in the year, it will cause, at the very least, a perception that there is tightness. The lower that figure is, the tighter it gets, right? So you say, yeah, but there's sugar in the stores. Yes, but at how much? You tell me, the price last year for refined was 53 pesos. In my presentation to Congress, I said the price today is 95. So how do you explain that? If somebody, I will not deny that some people holding stocks of sugar, and I don't know how much they're holding. They might be hoarding, but that's very little available right now. And if you were holding, I would be selling everything I could. If I had anything to sell, I would be selling everything today at these prices. So,
what about those stocks that we saw in warehouses, purportedly brought in? Of course, it was never established whether they were smuggled in, and the owners of the warehouses had produced documents to prove that they were not illegally, acquired. But the point is that we were there, and we have seen them. Ano yung mga yun po?
I think most of that you saw, the big ones, like the one of Cavite yesterday, like 350,000 bags. And then you saw, I think, 40,000.
Subic.
There's this arrival in Subic. Most of that, if it's imported, was imported because of sugar order number 3, which was crafted in January of the year, because we already saw that there was a big drop in the production of refined after the typhoon in Negros. That was a bad typhoon.
Okay.
I mean, their mills stopped and refineries stopped for a while, and the industrial customers
Users.
started to get very nervous, and that's why, although there was a lot of raw as we were milling, the refined production was down, and this is why industrials were given 200,000 tons of sugar to be imported as early as March. That was supposed to come in March, but it came in practically June. Why? Because there were two TROs issued in the island of Negros, and this delayed everything. So
TROs, why?
Some planter groups said that it was not necessary, that it would bring down the prices, etc., etc. But prices at that point started to go up, and they went up higher when the TROs were issued.
So you're saying local production is really down and the importation under sugar order number 3 was justified because the producers are saying there's enough sugar domestically and there's no need to import.
The sugar that you're seeing, a lot of the sugar that you're seeing is sugar that came from sugar order number 3 that should have arrived in March.
And therefore industrial. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. That sugar is not for sale. That is stock of the industrials, right? And there's no way I don't think the industrials are going to be generous enough to give out that sugar, because if they do, then they stop their factories.
No, but how come now the industrial users are actually saying they have no sugar? As a matter of fact, in the news stories today, yung Coke, yung plants daw nila have had to stop operating for lack of sugar. But we're seeing now all of these, sugar sacks in warehouse. So why don't they use that?
Because of the delay of sugar order number 3, we were already contemplating another importation because we all finally saw how big the production dropped, right? But because sugar order number 3 had a TRO, if the SRA felt that if they issued sugar order number 4 too early or at that time when it was not yet resolved, they would be held in contempt of court.
Sir, I understand what you're saying. Na what we've been seeing in the warehouses are industrial stocks of sugar. Let's talk about yung binibili o yung kailangan ng mga tao dun sa palengke at sa supermarket. Kasi yun talagang ramdam ng mga tao yung nasa 90 mahigit Are you saying that there really is a shortage of that kind of sugar, or are you just saying that we don't have as much as we usually have by August every year? Kasi those might be two different things. I don't know. I don't know but when you go by definitions. Kumbaga, meron ba talagang kakulangan dun sa supply or hindi lang kasing dami ang supply ng asukal na yan pagdating ng Agosto?
Let me give you a clear example. We were visited by that group of customs and police and criminal investigation in Bukidnon.
In Cagayan.
Upon instigation of one of these sugar planters that are blaring out all the time that, look at those bodegas, they have so much. This was the iceberg. Luzon was just the tip of the iceberg. And when they went to our bodegas, they found 462,000 bags of sugar. So I explained today to the Congress that our sugar mill, which produces about 8% of the country's sugar, milled close to 3 million bags this year. We were lucky we were not hit so bad as other mills in other regions. And the 440 only represents 15% of our production. That's how much is left. And what the other media outlets did not say was, and we told them, that for the last 10 weeks, we have had withdrawals of 10,000 bags a day. Which means that at 440, we are left with approximately 44, 45 days, which would bring, that is from the middle of August. So we would be running out of sugar around October, first week of October, maybe a little more. Depends if you want to stretch it out. But that would be a whole month before we start milling again. And that is the best case scenario, because out of the 140,000 tons of raw, 40,000 is in Mindanao. In Luzon, there's 4,000 tons. There's nothing in Luzon. Right? So Luzon has to get it if they want to ship it all the way from Mindanao. But we are 150 kilometers to the nearest port, and then you have to send it all the way to Manila, which will bring up even further the price.
Well, we talked to the sugar planters I think about 2 weeks ago, and they told us that the milling in the sugar milling is antiquated, and you are extracting, compared to other countries, the extraction of sugar is very low. What do you say to that statement?
Not our mill. When you mill sugar, a good mill will have a loss. In other words, you will recover about 84-85%.
Yeah.
Right? That's a good mill. When you have losses, other mills can have losses of 25, 20%. Some I think, some of the older mills that have not upgraded. But most mills have upgraded. Most of the bigger mills have upgraded. So, I mean, it depends. If you're, I don't want to mention which mills. I mean,
yes, sir.
I don't want to be...
But how many are antiquated? Because that's what the others are saying. Yung other side of the sugar industry. Now,
actually, the planters are saying, yes.
Almost 100 years na raw yung mills, and the recovery rate na daw is pretty low.
No. I'll give you a hint. Maybe the ones in Luzon are not performing well. Not that they're antiquated, but they haven't been maintained well. But you can't blame them because there's also very poor cane supply. Right?
Pero sir,
Luzon is only producing about 7.5%. And if those mills keep going like that, eventually I think there will be no more sugar produced in Luzon.
Yes, sir. But sir, I peeked at the SRA website, and it says there that on the average, Philippine millers are generating 5.1 to 6. What's that again? I think it's tons of sugar per hectare.
Yes.
I forget what unit it is, but it's around a tenth of what other countries are generating per hectare in terms of sugar output.
Different countries have different weather conditions, different weather patterns and things like that. And many countries also subsidize their sugar industries. We do not get much subsidy here. Let me put it this way. The culprit here is not the sugar farmer. The sugar farmer is the base of the industry. The mills will only mill sugarcane that is produced by the farmers. And this year, like everyone, the sugar farmers have been hit badly. We've had bad weather that has resulted in low sugar per ton of cane. That varies, sometimes it can be sweet, sometimes not so sweet. But the sugar industry has many shackles, if you want to call it. Most of the farmers today have the handicap of having to lease their land to continue operations. The farmers of today, the ones that continue, are either beneficiaries or the bigger ones, the bigger farms, have to pay 25,000 per hectare to start with. That is the lease rate of land today. Right? So, can you imagine you're saddled with an upfront cost of $500 per hectare? In Thailand, they don't pay $500 per hectare just to operate the property. That's among other things. So the sugar industry is getting a bad rap when it is a victim today. We got hit by those typhoons, we got hit by bad weather, and now they're blaming us for this shortage. Right? So, I mean, there are many ways to look at it, right? I don't also blame the farmers that are very allergic every time there's an importation, because for them that is going to bring down the price. Not all the time, but there has to be a balance. In other words, but it has to be proactive. In other words, way before that shortage is going to happen, or is before it happens, you must ensure the market some supply so they do not panic, they do not, well, I'm not going to say the H word. I mean, like I said, if anybody has sugar today, they're selling it. At this price, you're stupid to hoard it.
So what are your thoughts on this, on what happened in regard to sugar order number 4? Was that was that uncalled for? Should that have been approved to begin with? I'm not talking about the executive secretary, but the fact that the president himself ordered it stopped when, by your reasoning, it was justified. What are your thoughts on that? Where was the palace on that then?
It's very difficult to understand why. If you listen to my statements, I've always said that this is an inherited problem by our president. He had just taken office in June. In July, he was working with the incumbent officers who advised him that there was this looming shortage. I mean, the prices were already up, and if nothing was done, we will continue to have these high prices until there is sufficient enough sugar to satisfy everyone. Maybe they got their lines crossed, and this is why the two officials are being charged, or some people are saying they should be charged, but they were acting on very rational basis, and even all recommendations that came from the stakeholders pushed for the importation. We are a very mature industry. We do not want very high prices because this only encourages smuggling. The price of sugar outside is somewhat higher than what we have today. Definitely today, much, much higher. I mean, we've had our price increase is 100%, right? Mm-hmm. But these are market forces, and you said rightly so. This is demand and supply. But once it leaves the mill warehouses and refined refineries, it's beyond our control. Now, the other factor that led to this, for example, is the just-in-time principle that many companies are practicing today. While they were used to supplier financing, and they would come in with just-in-time inventory, just like many industries, like the car industry, etc. If you want to ensure your raw material so you can continue to operate. So who's to blame if if an industrial user says, no, I think I better have 3 months of stock instead of 2 weeks. So he wants to ensure that he can operate his factory. I'm not saying that all. I mean, it's expensive to have a very huge inventory. But going back to the sugar that they found in the bodegas, et cetera, all that imported sugar is meant for industrials. So when they found this industrial sugar, yeah, they say, oh, we found 40,000, we found 350,000. That's all committed sugar. That is not available for the market.
It cannot be, legally, it cannot be ordered released to the market. Are there laws against that?
I would not know, but are you going to go to a Coca-Cola or a Rebisco and confiscate that sugar just because they have it? It'll bite you back, and then you will have their workers coming to say, boss, wala na kaming trabaho kasi kinuha yung asukal. Right?
Well, in the meantime, the government has ordered a suspension of classification of all domestic sugar production for export classification A. Is that allowed?
We have not had export in the last 2 years, right? Let's talk about export. The last time we exported was about 2 years ago.
So
this was for the U.S. quota, and
Yes,
that's
yes.
a completely different. That's a completely different topic. It's a non-issue today because last year all sugar was classed as domestic sugar.
Yes.
There is no export.
So hindi rin pala kailangan niya. That order was unnecessary dahil wala naman talaga for export even to the US. The US quota wala rin.
I didn't know of any order changing the classification of export sugar. What I can tell you is that about 2 years ago, we had what we called a replenishment program, wherein because of the U.S. quota, I don't remember exactly the percentage, but maybe just 7% of our sugar was allotted to serve this U.S. quota, which was a very special arrangement which since time immemorial with the U.S., wherein they have a very high price sugar, which we said, let us export this, let's say and then it was like 25 cents, let's say, and we can allow us to import back Thai sugar, which was at then maybe 12 cents or 15 cents, right? So, but it served its purpose. But last year we agreed not to have this program anymore because of the uncertainties of being able to get the sugar back. And of course, shipping to the States was very, very expensive. I mean, today, I remember if you wanted to ship a 40-foot container before to the US, it would cost you about $3,000. Today, it'll cost you $20,000.
Wow.
Right? So, I mean, all these things are taken into consideration when sugar orders are done because of this or because of that. It's not just simple data. Now, going back to that export sugar, that particular company did refuse to send that sugar because he said, why will we send that sugar to the States when we need the sugar here? But I said there was a replenishment program. But that was his prerogative. Now he paid very cheap for that sugar from the planters, and now he wants to have it declared as domestic. He's gonna make a killing. He probably paid 1,000 pesos for that sugar, and now we're going to give him on a silver platter, and he can sell it for what, 3,000? I don't know. I think that's unfair when everybody else in the industry followed that order. I think the best thing to do is confiscate that sugar. He didn't follow the order that year. That's not last year. That's like 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
Okay.
Okay.
Ang dami pala nating hindi alam sa na nangyayari dyan sa sugar industry. we should have, we should have
Okay,
more inside stories.
Well, sir, we'll probably have you again in a future episode. But for now, we're already out of time. So we'd like to say thank you to Mr. Pablo Lobregat of the Philippine Sugar Millers Association.
Thank you,
Sir,
Pablo
we'd like to schedule another one with you in a future date. Maraming salamat po for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's it for the chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. I'm Ed Lingao.
I'm Mami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Luchi Cruz-Valdes of News 5.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.